I wanted to take a little time to take a look at the Canvas gradebook, see some of the things that we can do with the gradebook, and also to discuss some of the problems that this particular gradebook program can present to some of us. Now, first of all, what we're looking at right now is called the Course Analytics page. And in order for the Course Analytics page to present any information, there have to actually be students in the class who have actually completed assignments. So we're taking a look at the Course Analytics page for my World Literature course from last semester. And I will show you how to access this page for your course in a few moments. Course Analytics can offer you a wealth of information, including, for example, activity by date, submissions, grades on various assignments, and then it also presents information on each student's grades. But of course, I can't show you that because this is an actual class with actual students, and that would violate their privacy. And you can get this in graphic form, such as this, and if you point to individual assignments and click on them, you get information about which assignment that particular bar on a graph is dealing with. Or if it's by date, you can point to it and get the date that it's looking at, or the date range. Now, if you prefer hard data to charts and graphs, you can simply move this by clicking on the chart icon, and you will be given the actual hard data for the activity by date, the submissions, the low, median, high, and percentile ranking for each assignment. So you can get, and then of course, information on each individual student. So you can get a wealth of information from the Course Analytics section. Of course, as you notice, it's not possible to see any of, for example, all of the activity by date on one screen unless you happen to have a very large computer screen that you're working with. I can view, in most classes, I can view an entire section at one time on my 27-inch desktop computer, but I can't on my laptop. Okay, and for some of us, this presents a problem because there really isn't any way to see all of the grades for a course at one time with the Canvas gradebook program. And we're going to take a look at that in a few moments. So that's how Course Analytics works. Let's turn now to looking at, first of all, how to access this page, and then to looking at the actual gradebook. So we will open our Canvas training course. And first of all, to view the Course Analytics page that we were just looking at, on the column to the right, you simply click View Course Analytics, and that will take you to that page. And you can see why we didn't use the screen for the Canvas training session for this, because obviously, since these aren't students, they're faculty members, I didn't ask them to actually do any of the work for this training course. Okay, so there's nothing to show here. Okay, so we will go back to our home page. Now, to access the gradebook, obviously, you click on Grades. And you always want to make sure that Grades is a section of the Canvas page that your students can access, because it's very important that students be able to see their grades at all times. Now, for those of us who have been in school before the 21st century, this seems a little bizarre because none of us ever knew our grades back when things weren't done on computers, and now it's a requirement. And yeah, because of the way this gradebook program is set up, it's not necessarily a good thing. Okay, so let's take a look at the gradebook. Now, I want to point out that I have added some extra assignments so that there are 2 assignments in each of our grading categories. Okay, but only 2 assignments for each of our grading categories. So that means that we're basically looking at about 8 assignments in this grade book. And of course, most courses have many, many more than 8 assignments. So with that in mind, let's take a look at our gradebook page. Okay, now, as you can see, there is no possible way to look at all of the gradebook at one time, even with only 8 to 10 assignments posted and a few students. Most of the time, in most classes, there are so many students in the course that you can't even look at all of the grades for one assignment at one time. And as I said, if you're used to looking at the scores in your grade book to make decisions as to how the course is going, you really can't do that with this program. Okay? But let's see some of the things you can do. First of all, it's important to notice where these grade book entries come from. These are picked up from the name that you give your assignment. Okay? And in a lot of cases, the assignment names are even longer than things like Chapter 1 quiz and Chapter 2 quiz, because we want the students to be aware of what they're actually working on. Okay? And yes, you can narrow these courses, but as you can see, the title for the assignments actually disappears. Okay? It doesn't adjust as it does in some programs. So if you end up narrowing all of your columns a great deal, and this has to be done individually, you can't really tell what's going on with it, particularly unless the first few letters of each assignment are so different that that lets you know what's going on. Okay. It didn't happen in this case, and it doesn't always. In fact, most of the time it doesn't. But sometimes, if you narrow a lot of columns, the actual points or percentages shift so that they don't really appear under the column title that they're supposed to. Yeah, it's tons of fun. Okay. But there are things that you can do that are good. I have yet to find a way to, for example, change whether students' names are presented by last name or first name in the grade book. It switches back and forth, and I can't figure out how to fix that. It's always alphabetized by last name, though, so that helps somewhat. You can, however, change how you want the columns in the grade book to appear. So to do that, you click on View and you go to Arrange By, and I have no idea what the default order is. I don't know what that means because it never seems to be exactly the same. You can arrange it by assignment name, due date, points lowest to highest, module first to last, last to first, however you want to do it. I generally like to have mine arranged by due dates so that as the semester progresses, the columns get filled in. That is generally how most of us are used to working with grade books, and that's a good way to do it, but you can set it up any way you want to. You also can filter it by assignment groups or modules, or by whether it's late, and you can apply colors to indicate different types of statuses, whether it's late or missing or resubmitted, if you want to, which is pretty cool. It is possible to add notes to the grade book. I'm not entirely sure how to do that because I don't do it. I find the grade book is difficult enough to deal with without adding anything extra to it, so I don't do that. But if you go to the Canvas guide for instructors, I'm sure it'll provide information on that. Okay. Now, another thing that you can do is that you can export the gradebook to your computer, and it will open with Microsoft Excel as a default. And it would seem that this would provide you with a better way to look at the gradebook. And it does, kind of. But as you can see, there's a lot of information on here that doesn't even appear on the gradebook itself on Canvas, and that makes it very confusing. The student ID things, that's pretty easy to hide. You know you don't necessarily need to see that if you don't want to. But what gets confusing is that at the end, where you should be seeing total scores, there are a lot of extra columns for current score and posted current score, final score. In this case, they all happen to match, but I've seen instances where they don't. You get the same thing for the total score for the course. You get current scores and unposted current scores and final scores and unposted final scores. And the only way to know which one of those is accurate is to compare it to the Canvas gradebook, and that'll tell you which column you're actually working with in terms of their course score. Yeah. And even at that, as you can tell, you still can't see the entire class's grades at one time. Okay. Now, as I said, for a lot of people, that's not a problem, particularly since we had that wonderful course analytics program. But for some of us who are used to working, back in the dark ages, we actually had paper grade books, so we could see everything that was going on in a class by looking at the grade book. And then a lot of us worked with gradebook programs on the computer that weren't posted to the internet, and they allowed us to see everything that was going on in our course by looking at the gradebook. And if that's what we're used to doing to tell what's going on with the course, this gradebook program is not ideal. We are, unfortunately, however, forced to use it. So we're kind of stuck with it. One of the things that we can do that can make things a little bit easier sometimes is we can look at an individual student's grades. For example, let's say we want to look at Kathy Baker's grades. We click on her name, and there's a lot of analytic information here, if that helps. Or you can just click on grades. And this is the page that the student is actually seeing when she accesses the gradebook. So we can see what the student is actually seeing. And we also can look at that individual student's grades to see where she might be having some problems. Now, this particular student has 90% on everything except the exams, but in a lot of cases, if a student's grades are suffering, we can go in and we can look at these percentage totals to tell which types of assignments the student is having particular problems with. We can go in and see how many assignments the student has skipped. And in online classes, particularly in online composition classes, there are generally quite a few of those. And that can be very helpful sometimes. I work quite a bit with the individual students' grades because at least I can tell something about what's going on with my students using that page. Okay. Another thing we can do is we can choose to hide student grades as we post them. This can sometimes come in handy if we are grading essays or papers of some sort, particularly a paper that might be a little bit longer and might take us more than one day to grade. If we want the students to get all of their grades back at one time, we can choose to hide the grades for an assignment. So for example, let's say that I'm still working on my paper 1 grades. Let's say that I have about half of them done, but not the rest of them. I can go to the head of the column for that paper, and when I point to it, 3 dots will appear. I can click on those three dots and I can choose hide grades. And there's information here about what supposedly happens when you hide grades. You can click hide. And there should be a little icon that indicates that these grades are hidden. Now, in the past year, I have seen some problems with this function. It used to work perfectly in the past, but based on the fact that I got emails from students about grades that supposedly were hidden, I'm not sure that this hide grades function works consistently in all cases anymore. Of course, Canvas does tend to update its software every time the wind blows, so by the time you're viewing this video, that problem may have been corrected or it may have gotten worse. If you really want to make sure that students all see their grades at the same time, it's not a bad idea to keep a listing of the grade on a Word document or an Excel document and then just go in and enter the grades all at one time. I don't particularly trust this program, so that's what I do. Something else you need to know about the gradebook, and this is really irritating. The gradebook, and possibly other parts of Canvas, sends emails to your students that you don't see. Isn't that nice? I'm not sure what all these emails are. I'm not sure what they say because I never see them. I do know that they get emails when grades are posted. I don't know what other emails they get. I personally have a lot of problems with a computer program communicating with my students without even letting me know what it's telling my students. I teach this course, Canvas doesn't, but apparently Canvas thinks it does. So that's just something else we have to put up with from this program. As you can tell, I'm not particularly crazy about some aspects of Canvas, and the gradebook is one of the aspects I'm really not crazy about. Let's see, is there anything else I need to warn you about the gradebook program? Oh yes, of course, you can go in and change grades at any time. Many of the grades will be added by Canvas automatically. If the assignment is an objective assignment that the students complete on the computer and that you don't grade yourself, the grades will automatically be posted when the student finishes the assignment. Oh, I do need to tell you how to unhide the grades. I forgot to do that. If you recall, we hid the grades for paper 1 so that supposedly students couldn't see them. When we want them to go ahead and post the grades so that they can be seen, we click on those 3 dots again, select Post Grades, and again, we get information that might be accurate. Click Post. And now supposedly the grades can be seen. Okay, that's really all I can think of to tell you about the gradebook. Like I said, I think this gradebook program is not the best thing in the world to work with, but we are required to use it, and therefore we're just kind of stuck with it. If you have any questions, do review the information in the Canvas Manual for Instructors. It can give you a lot more information about some of the features that are available in the gradebook. As I said, I tend to use it as little as possible because I don't trust it, frankly. I trust the math, but I don't trust too much else about how this gradebook works, particularly in terms of sending my students emails and not hiding grades when I tell it to. So do check that manual for extra information. And also, never be afraid to talk to full-time instructors on campus. about any aspects of teaching, because the full-timers are always happy to help our adjunct instructors. We know how important you are to us. Our department couldn't survive without you, and we want to help you any way we can. Thanks a lot. Hope this helped you understand the grade book and wasn't too discouraging.